Huge things happening in the world of professional bass fishing, and we're going to cover it all for you right here on Bass 365 Live. September 8th, 2020, and you guys are watching the very first live cast from Bass 365. And as I said earlier, huge things are happening in the world of professional bass fishing. I'm Mikey Moser, and with me, of course, is the man himself, Ricky B. Ricky, man, I'm so happy to be here. I can't even express how happy it is. You are the man. You are the guy that created this Bass 365 world. And you know what? You let me in here. So I want to talk before there. As I say, guys, there are some huge things going on in the world of bass fishing.
Huge things, right?
Unbelievable. We just had a whirlwind of the last 2 months. FLW super tournaments, biggest tournaments they've ever had in professional bass fishing, as far as I understand. I mean, we had huge tournaments on big water with big smallmouth bass. A new format for the FLW title. There was just some massive stuff that happened out there in the world. And man, I was fortunate. You were fortunate. We were there to witness it all. That was pretty cool.
Mikey, first of all, we kind of need to tell everybody what we have going on. You know, we started off 20 years ago with Bass East and it evolved to Bass 365. And, you know, I've been fortunate enough to be blessed with, you know, some great ships with anglers. And then I met you and Amanda, and, you know, I was at a point in the career with this thing where in order for it to get any bigger, I needed help. And you guys were put into my life, and it's made a big difference. And we're going to grow this thing to be the mecca of bass fishing.
That's just it. What you started all those years ago is a platform unlike anything else. I mean, you've already established relationships with professional anglers all across the industry. I mean, you're talking Bass Elites, you're talking FLW, you're talking Major League Fishing, and everybody knows Ricky B out there. So to have these kind of guys as not only people to work with, as friends.
As friends.
Major friendships with all these guys. That's fantastic. Right. And, you know, as a guy like me, now I come from, you know, I've been in the fishing industry most of my life. I've been a tournament angler. I was a guide for a long time. I did the offshore stuff. I did the bass stuff. But you kind of met me because of my social media experiences, I guess.
Right.
I got started on YouTube and a few other things, and started working with the other anglers in this industry, and that's how we met, correct?
Right, for sure. And, you know, like I said, I feel like the platform we have is as good as anything that's ever been out there for, you know, for the viewership. And I'm excited about it, man. We got a lot of good things happening. You know, we'll be at all the Bass Pro Tour events next year. We'll be at all the FLW events next year. And we will somehow or another be at all the elites next year. I don't know how it's going to happen yet, but I promise you we will have coverage.
We'll definitely figure it out one way or another. And that's the ultimate goal with Bass 365, is to have complete coverage on all the major tours. So all the knowledge that people are thirsty for out there, all the stuff they want to learn and see and be entertained, we have it like nobody else can have now. And that's all because of what you started there. And I'm blessed, honestly, that you're allowing me to be part of this. And
you know what they say about a blind squirrel, right? Mike,
yeah,
you know what they say about a blind squirrel, right?
No, you tell us. What's a blind squirrel say?
Every once in a while, that blind squirrel will find a nut. So,
well, you found a nut. Trust me. Any of my folks, anybody that's following me, if you guys aren't familiar with me on Bass 365, I've been around on YouTube and social media, Instagram especially, for a long time. My name is Mikey Moser. Most people know me as Captain Mikey. And I had a YouTube channel called SAWGRASSBASSIN, which is out there. And you talk about nuts, I tend to get a little animated out there. That's absolutely true. So most people know me as kind of a nut anyway. So you're the blind squirrel, I'm the nut. I can live with that. I'm fine.
Exactly.
Yeah. But I honestly think between the two of us, with your experience, you're already setting the platform out there, and your, you know, the camaraderies you already made with all these anglers that are out there, and my social media experience, man, the sky is the limit, and we
Right.
are set to take over on every level here.
And I agree. And I mean, we want it to be, you know, something that the fans can be involved in. You know, if good, bad, or ugly, you know, we'll shoot it to you straight every time.
Absolutely.
And, you know,
and that's the beauty of live, is this is in your face right here,
right now.
There's no BS and our way out of this. This is true. There's no fancy editing. The ideas that we've talked about, what we want to do,
Right.
live broadcasts like this, we have the capability now to be able to do live on site, live in studio, and even live on the water.
Right, no doubt. So has our guest showed up yet or no?
Yeah, he is, and that's it,
guys. Bring him on in here and let's get this party started.
Okay, we're going to do that. So that was just a little bit about us, guys.
Right.
We have a great show for you guys. And we are, like I said, huge things are happening in the world of bass fishing out there right now. A lot of big things have happened. We kind of touched on it and stuff. But most of these things that we've been dealing with have been happening out in the professional world. So there's no better way to talk about what's going on there than a guy that's been there doing it. He's doing it every day.
Right.
We're blessed to have a good friend of ours come on here today for the inaugural show. We're talking about FLW Nitro Boats bro, Casey Scanlon. Casey he's a Midwest guy. He's coming from Missouri out there. And honestly, you know, everyone talks about the California guys, the Florida guys, the Texas guys that know the big bass. Give me a Midwest angler any day, all day long. I don't think there's a more well-rounded bass angler than the guys coming from Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, those areas out there.
Yeah, but they're not as fun. The California guys bring that little Cali flair to it.
A little bit of flair,
right?
But I'll tell you what, I've had some good times with Casey, so he's a lot of fun, guys.
So Mikey,
let's get this going. Let's bring him on in here. We're going to bring in Casey Scanlon in here. Here's a little clip of what Casey brings to the table every event out there. This is from his, I believe, his Harris Chain in Florida event here.
Casey Scanlon. This is Florida. There's a lot of big ones. That's what we're going to go for today. We're going to hopefully get 5 big ones in the box.
That's how you started off right there.
All right, guys, here he is, the one and only Casey Scanlon.
Hey guys,
Casey, what's happening?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely,
we're happy to be here. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, so I'm glad everything's working. I can see myself on there, so I did everything right. So that's a bonus.
You did it real right. In fact, from what I can see, all three of us, you're doing it better than any of us. So
daggone right. I gotta ask the first question. Casey, how rough was it at Sturgeon Bay? And be honest.
The final day, man, was pretty brutal. You know, I mean, I think they sent us a text message midway through the day that said there was 35-mile-an-hour winds. So at that point, I was kind of tucked in, but I could only imagine what the main lake looked like. But it was rocking in the morning and that final day and building, you know, every minute we waited there. So they were big ones, even in the bays. You know, at one point there in you know, the canal there, the shipping canal, there was some pretty big waves coming through it, and it's, you know, tucked back in and narrow. So yeah, that
you got beat up. You got beat up for like 2 events in a row, though. So you had an FLW Super Tournament event on Lake Erie, and that got pretty rough out there too. And then you hardly had a break to rest your bones, and then you're back out there on Lake Michigan. Which, man, it got terrible. I grew up fishing those lakes, so I know how bad they can be.
At Erie, did you make the run or did you stay close?
I stayed close. You know, I mean, I ran about 20 miles or so out there. And, you know, we were out there in the middle, a group of us, and it was rough. It was coming over the front of the trolling motor, you know, most of the day out there, but you know, and those were, you know, we had like 10-mile-an-hour winds. Granted, you know, Lake Erie's a huge lake as well, so they were big rollers. But, yeah, it was just kind of a different wind over there in the bay. They were kind of short and choppy, and, you know, they were hard to manage over there in Green Bay.
So what did you think about, at the championship? What did you think about the Major League Fishing format? And then I've got something I want to add to it at the end of it.
I enjoyed it. It's been a while since I've competed in that kind of format. So did it several years ago, and they started doing the selects. But I thought it was a blast, And
Did you have any trouble adjusting to it? I mean, you guys traditionally are fishing the 5 biggest fish. You're going for the biggest fish that you can each time. Now every fish counts. You got the score tracker. You got penalties. Did any of that weigh into how you fished at all?
Yeah, I mean, you try to find groups of fish, and work hard to find, some numbers of fish. Of course, you want to throw quality in there as well, but a lot of times, it's about finding numbers, finding some areas that you can feel confident fishing in the tournament. A lot of times it's going to change. So it's all about, with 2 days of practice, is about finding water, making a lot of waypoints, whether you catch a fish there or not. You just want to have places to fish come tournament time when that clock is ticking. So just did a lot of looking, not as much, fishing and testing the size of the fish, so to speak. And then, it kind of factored into my decision the last day based on how we had been catching them. I thought it was going to take a lot more weight that final day to do well. And I was catching a lot of, I was catching some short fish in between, a lot of my keeper fish at Sturgeon Bay, which was, different than some of the competitors. My spot just had a lot of fish on it. And, with big waves and stuff like that, dealing with a lot of those smaller fish, I felt like was going to cost me some time given some of the weather conditions and stuff like that.
I think that's
some of your decisions for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand out there. They've called the Major League Fishing format and the Major League Fishing Tour, the Bass Pro Tour, the Dink Tour, because, you get on a school of 1 pound fish. Well, that changed this year. When you got a size limit of 2 pounds or better, then it's got to count. I mean, it's not that easy. Like you said, you caught a lot of small fish because they're under 2 pounds.
Sure.
I don't think that's not an easy thing to make sure you catch that many 2 pound plus fish. I don't think it's the Dink Fest anymore.
No, I mean, a 2 pound fish is typically a keeper anywhere we go in the country, regardless of size limits. You're still talking about keeper bass, which is the name of the game in tournament fishing. You just got to get as many of them as you can. And some of these guys get on some big groups of fish. And when you're at a smallmouth fishery in the summertime, it's about finding quality and numbers. So.
Quality and numbers. That's absolutely true.
Right. So the one thing I want to add on to the end of this, and Casey, the Major League Fishing format, hate it, love it, whatever, it's better for the fisheries. I was at 2 tournaments this past weekend, one on Saturday and one yesterday, just kind of hanging out and, seeing what was going on. I had a couple of my boys were fishing. And the way those fish were mistreated at those weigh-ins was disgusting. And I don't think I ever realized it before I had been around the Major League Fishing format for so long. How do you see the future laying out for tournament fishing with what Major League Fishing has brought to the table? It's definitely the best thing for the resource.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about summertime tournaments and, catching fish deep. I mean, that's definitely hard on them. So, for, a fishery like we were at or anything, in the warm weather, it's definitely better for the fishery. I enjoy the format. I don't know if we'll see, a full change. I still, I'm a tournament guy, so I love fishing a 5-fish format. And, the Major League Fishing deal is super fun. And I actually, for the way I fish, I think, I probably would do better at the Major League Fishing style events, to be quite honest. But I still love the 5-fish limits. I don't know if you'll see it ever go away, but I think you're going to see a lot of people try to trend towards this format if possible. It becomes super hard to do with large fields like we
groups
saw.
Of people. Right. I get it. It's just, to me, it's just so much better for the resource. I mean, again,
without a doubt. I mean, like last week at at Sturgeon Bay, a lot of those fish are 20+ feet deep. They're small,
right.
kind of fraction way. So putting, when you're catching that many of them and putting your hands on that many of them is definitely easier for the anglers, to not be digging in your live well all the time.
Right. And so the last question I have, and then I'm gonna let Mikey talk a little bit because I've been running all over him. But what are your thoughts on the trailering policy?
Oh, that was pretty cool. I mean, that was awesome. And it makes your decision. I would have had to have practiced, and maybe should have, but I would have had to I practiced for that event, with the 2 days that they gave me. I practiced in the big water. I knew, it's a championship, not really going for points. So I knew that it was a possibility that the wind would blow. And, so I trailered, to about the northernmost boundary you could, which, even on the light winds that we had during some of those days would have been tough.
Right.
It wouldn't have been fun. That's
absolutely.
So it was a blast for everybody involved. And if you're doing cameramen and marshals and all that, it's better for them too.
Right. It's better for your equipment, better for you as an angler.
Yeah.
And once again, the I hate to keep going back to it, but the catch, weigh, and release, if you have to drive 5 big bass back through those conditions, their lifespan is greatly decreased when we do that, and everybody knows that.
Absolutely, they get beat up in the box in any kind of travel, but when you're fishing those big lakes like Lake Erie, Lake Michigan, up where you guys were, that's a long way for those fish to travel back in those boxes over an 8-hour period or whatever it is. They get beat up in the box the whole time they're coming back. You got, it's middle of summertime. It's hot in there. And it's definitely easier for that. But not only that, being on the trailer like that is great for the safety of these anglers. Those are big waters. They're rough waters. They're dangerous waters. And let's face it, you're out there in a bass boat. It's not really designed for 4-foot seas in the middle of Lake Michigan. It's just not.
No.
I'm gonna be quiet. I want y'all to talk a little bit now because I've kind of stolen the show from Casey. Let's get him involved, and I want some fishing tips is what I want.
Yeah, that's exactly. And you can see I've changed the overlay on the screen up here. We're talking big water, big bass fishing. Now, Casey, I know you're coming from Lake Ozark, which is a pretty big body of water itself. Was it different for you? Was it harder for you adjusting to smallmouth fishing on a giant body of water like Lake Erie and Lake Michigan?
Every place you go to takes a little bit of adjustments. I've actually been to both of those fisheries before, which, is not always the case with our tournament schedule. I've usually been to maybe half of the fisheries on the schedule. So I've been to both of those, knew kind of what to expect, but it replicates some of the fishing we do here in Missouri. You're fishing deep, you're fishing rocks for the most part. So, it's about looking at your contours and, using your Garmin electronics out there and just trying to find those groups of fish. So, it's definitely different than the largemouth fishing we do here, but similar to some of the stuff we do at Table Rock or Stock Lake or some of these little bit clearer water fisheries around my house. But, definitely took a little bit of adjustment. It was nice going to the championship after Lake Erie since they're kind of similar in how they set up. But, it always takes a day or two to kind of get adjusted to a new fishery. And I
can imagine. And I heard it from you, and I heard it from a lot of guys out there. I mean, the electronics that you guys have today were huge advantages. Out there, you're a Garmin guy, and we know Garmin's live scope is it's the bee's knees. It's amazing. Was that a huge tool for you in finding these fish? And, on such a big body of water, was your electronics a big, big part of your game plan?
Absolutely. I found, those groups of fish by, simply idling over them and looking at my down side view. I'll see most of the fish on the down view when I drive over the top of them with the outboard motor. And then, the live scope's definitely a game changer. I caught a ton of fish in all of those events. And in most events, shallow or deep, I'm using that live scope. And at Sturgeon Bay, you idle over 4 or 5 of them. turn around and shine the live scope on them, and you can see what's really there, which in a lot of cases there's a lot more, and they move fast. So it was nice to be able, when those fish are like kind of you're dropping vertical on a lot, so I can see those fish before I even drop on them. I can see them kind of coming 5 or 10 feet away, where I can put that bait directly on them, not next to them, to the side of them, behind them. I know that I can see that drop shot or whatever it is I'm throwing, literally go past their nose. So,
and I know from watching you out there and talking to you while you were at these events, drop shot was the king when it came to fishing out there, and as it was for many of those guys out there. But you gave us a good tip, which we actually shared on Bass 365's Instagram stories there, on how you did your drop shot method. And I think that's something, on adjusting your leaders, I think that's something that our fans out there would love to hear. Your drop shot technique and how you adjusted with it. Is there anything special you did?
Yeah, on those 2 fisheries, when it was windy and the waves were big, I would adjust the length of that drop leader. So ordinarily, I'd probably throw a 12-inch leader, something like that. And in this instance, I was using, probably close to a 2-foot leader a lot of times, because with the boat going up and down and some of these big boulders, and you're drifting a lot of times. So you're not vertical over those fish. A lot of times the bait's kind of out in front of you, maybe behind you. So it's not, it's just to keep it off the bottom a little more, keep it in their face. And it seems like it got me a few more bites, under those windier conditions at those events.
That's great. I think that's a great tip. I'm not a big drop shot fisherman. I'm Florida. I'm very shallow water. I don't get a lot of chances to do it, even though I know it's very effective down here. I just don't do it often enough. But if it was me, I'd have one drop shot rod. I'd have it tied on at a 12-inch or a 14-inch lead or something, and I probably wouldn't even have thought of adjusting that length. But that's a great tip for people out there on the big water. You got to make those adjustments to be able to find them.
Sure, and that's true with any kind of fishing. If you're not getting some bites, it's worth it usually to take the time and change, even just something small like that. And sometimes it make a big difference, or at least, mentally it might, boost your confidence as well. So
speaking of mentally, let's talk about the score tracker, because I love it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the score tracker, to be honest. I think it lets you know where you're at in the game.
Right.
It lets you know when they're biting. If you're the only one on the score tracker not doing anything, it lets you know that, maybe you're doing something wrong or you're in the wrong area. So
right.
it makes you make those adjustments faster, in my opinion. So, I don't let it bother me when I'm behind. Sure, if you're, not catching anything and it's just dinging, it gets frustrating, but it's still telling you something.
Right.
Yeah, it's an extra element that you just didn't have before. And I gotta imagine, definitely for a lot of guys, it adds an extra element of pressure that you didn't have before in your traditional formats. Whether you're on the top or the bottom, you're on the bottom and you're hearing that constant score tracker update, and you just feel yourself slipping farther and farther, and knowing you got to get more and more to catch back up. But when you're on the top, it's working that exact opposite too, because you're at the top and you're hearing the guys that are coming. They're coming and they're coming.
They are coming, right?
It's just more pressure to have to keep up that timing, I guess. Really, that every 2 minutes you got to have a 2-pound fish, on some of these lakes. So I think it's an incredible pressure that was never there before.
Well, and it also helps you, depending on where you're at in the game. So, for instance, at Sturgeon Bay, I guess it was my first day of competition. I was out running a pattern out there, fishing some buoys and things like that, and was able to get where I needed to be at the score tracker to advance, or at least to where I thought I needed to be. And then I was able to go looking and basically found, the fish that carried me through the rest of the event when I was looking around. So it tells you where you're at, and you can conserve fish and then go find fish when you hit a certain point as well.
Right. Unless you're on the cut line, and then your heart's probably about to jump out of your chest all afternoon.
Yeah, and I mean, and that made my event so much easier. All 3 days I kind of, caught them.
Right.
All 3 days besides the final day, I caught them, kind of early and with some good regularity to where I was, didn't have to feel as much pressure as some of those guys. But I mean, if you're right on the cut line or, first guy out, I mean, that's a pressure-packed situation for sure. And it's fun. It's a blast.
It kind of reminds me of a basketball game where it comes down to that last shot as the buzzer goes off.
And it always does.
Right, always. Right.
It does. It always seems to work out. And then you throw in possible penalties on top of that. How did that happen for you? Did you get a bunch of them? Were you safe?
The first day I did good, and then actually the day I caught the least amount of fish, I was kind of conserving some fish or whatnot and just kind of practicing around. And I think I led that day in penalties, which wasn't a lot either. I think, for the most part, for those guys, 99% of the field having it been their first competition in that format. I didn't hear about a lot of penalties. Usually they tell you,
And honestly, that was like the big talk of the pre-tournament. All the pre-tournament stuff was these guys are going to get crushed by penalties.
Oh yeah.
And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'd be willing to bet you that you guys had less penalties throughout the tournament than the Bass Pro Tour guys did.
I wonder if that's just because you're more conscious of knowing that it's new. It's new to you, or these guys are the MLF Bass Pro guys are just they're used to it. So
right.
Yeah. I mean, I focused on that a little bit. Smallmouth are hard to land.
Yeah, absolutely.
Easy to slip out of your hands and get a penalty with. So I actually fought my fish a little bit differently.
Right.
I worked them to the boat maybe a little bit slower and, took my time, really focused on getting them in position to where when I brought them in the boat, I could scoop them in without getting a penalty.
That's awesome.
The ones that I think got me in trouble, though, the small ones, you catch enough of those and you get to throwing them out.
Right. Little squeakers are always the issue. You don't get the big penalties and stuff on that giant. You always get that. It's that little squeaker that wouldn't have counted anyway. Then you get that 2-minute penalty. That's the one that stings the most.
And Mikey, I'll tell you, the guys learned really quick, and I think the marshals helped them a little bit with, if they had a fish that they knew was not going to keep, they were all unhooking them outside of the boat, to avoid that problem of getting them in the boat and slipping out of your hand. Then you got to sit for a couple minutes.
Yeah. Exactly.
Again, I think it's the format's awesome. You guys did an amazing job. I still like seeing the 5 fish. We just got to figure out a better way to take care of them. That's my opinion on it.
I like it all. I like both formats. I really do. I'm old school like everybody else. I love seeing the big weigh-ins. I wish we could find a way to do both of them. A big show again where we can all meet and greet all you guys. We can watch, even if it's just watching videos together or something. I don't know how to do it exactly, but I miss that. That's the one thing I missed working on the MLF tour. And
I think that, and just so you'll know, because this is my second year on the Bass Pro Tour, that will happen just with COVID and everything this year. They didn't have any activations.
That's right.
COVID's changed the way we all do everything nowadays.
Sure. Well, it actually changed the entire schedule for everybody out there.
Sure it did.
And where we go. But because of COVID, we got the first time ever super tournaments. FLW super tournaments. These were huge fields, absolutely giant fields out there. I think 209 boats was on the one tournament, 204 on the other one. Now, Casey, you're an FLW pro circuit angler. You've been fishing that, for your points, for Angler of the Year, to make it to the FLW title championship, all that kind of stuff. Now, after COVID, we kind of had to combine things. So we made these super tournaments that some of the MLF Bass Pro Tour guys were able to fish in there too. Did that affect you and how you fish at all? Or when you're still going for points, but these guys are really just going for a paycheck?
Well, definitely. I think it affected all of us. So it affected my decisions on where I practiced, and what I did in the tournament just based on the field size. I I prefer not, just like every other angler, I'm sure, prefers not to fish around boats.
Right.
So, I did things like at Lake Chickamauga, like predominantly fish shallow, where I knew not as much of the field would concentrate, and had a decent event there.
Yeah.
And and then towards the end, and I did the same at lacrosse. Typically I stay in pool 8, and I decided to spend 2 of my days of practice in pool 7. Actually had a really good practice, followed up by a not so good tournament up there. But I mean, I practiced up there to get away from some of the boats, so made a long run, about as far as you could on 7. And so yeah, I mean, and then when you talk about points, that it's definitely, when you're fishing for points, you're not, especially in the final couple events, not always able to swing for the fences, or maybe don't feel as comfortable. Where like, let's say Lake Erie, I think you would have seen a lot more FLW guys probably make that run to St. Clair, if not worried about points.
Right.
And I don't think you would have seen a single guy fish for largemouth. I mean, if you're going to go there and try to win the tournament, I mean, you're not going to see anybody fish for largemouth. And guys did good with largemouth, FLW guys, pro circuit anglers, or BPT anglers. So, I mean, it definitely, you go out there and catch what you can catch. And
yeah. Now, I know you've been around in the league. I think I heard you say 9 years, 10 years. You've been a pro now.
Yeah, I think 9 years.
9 years.
I'm losing track. More.
Yeah, you were with Bass Elites originally, I believe, and then went to FLW, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So with that, I mean, both those tournaments, you're fishing 100 boats, 110 boats, somewhere in that range, 80 to 120, I think, somewhere in that range. So now all of a sudden you're in these FLW super tournaments where you got 200 plus boats, and a lot of these guys that you used to fish with, that maybe you haven't been able to fish with in a long time. So now it's kind of, you're all a big family out there. Was it fun to be able to fish with some of those guys that you haven't been able to fish with in the last few years?
Yeah, absolutely. It really was. It was nice to see everybody. Love competing against those guys. So that part I really did enjoy, for sure. So I see a lot of familiar faces, and so yeah, I liked that part. And you're right. It felt like a big family, because when it all boils down to it, the bass fishing community's pretty tight knit, small group of people, and it was super fun to see some of my old friends, for sure.
I've been most impressed with that over my time recently working on these tours and working with all you anglers and everything, is just how close all you really are. A lot of you guys have been doing this together for a long time. Your families grow up together, your children grow up together, your wives become friends, and you really become a family more than anything. And I've been very impressed with just how awesome everybody I've met throughout this has been. You guys are a very unique group, and I think for upcoming anglers that are aspiring to get to, that's another perk and another level that you got to understand.
And that was the one question I had for Casey was, dealing with a young angler, what would be your advice? I mean, you got a kid coming out of high school or a kid coming out of college. What would be your advice to them?
And they probably hear it all the time, but really just go out there and fish as much as you can. Like, the first thing I always get asked is, how do I get sponsors and stuff like that? And I'll be the first to tell you, I didn't have a single sponsor, I don't think, until I made it to the Elite Series.
Right.
I made my first deposit in the Elite Series, without really having a tournament. So the real deal is to go out there and spend a ton of time on the water, develop a passion for it, be hungry, and just fish as many tournaments as you can, large, small. You just got to go out there and learn. If you really want to do this as a profession, you need to go out there and just spend a ton of time at it, dedicate yourself to it, because although the information is out there is easier to find than ever, nothing beats time on the water. Have that experience to make the decisions that, when you see all sorts of different conditions, out there on the water, you're faced with adverse situations where you're not catching them or need to do something different. As an experienced angler, you can just make those decisions so much faster and realize things so much quicker than a guy who doesn't spend that time.
Did you spend any time as a co-angler before you ventured out on your pro career? I've heard pros and cons of both, and I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on it.
So no, so when I was 15, I joined a bass club, fished out of the back of those guys' boats for, I think 1 or 2 years.
Right.
Started bringing my hunk of junk to the boat ramp, getting my butt kicked, because when I was a co-angler, I thought I was really good. I was catching them and, winning tournaments out of the back of the boat, but it's a lot different when you make those decisions for yourself. So,
sure it is.
That was a big learning curve, going from thinking you're really good to, the realization that you have a lot more to learn than you thought.
Right.
But, there's definitely been times where I've, wished we have a lot of great anglers here in the Midwest, and I haven't fished with a lot of them, and I was sure would have liked to seen what a few of them are doing. I can tell you that.
And I've known Lucas since he was like 10. No, I mean, not since when he was co-angling, and I've kind of watched his career progress. And I think that being a co-angler helped him.
Sure.
But now that's gone. I mean, you could, be a co-angler at the Toyota Series or the Bassmaster Opens, but I don't know that part of it's worth it. Now that there's not a major tour that you can be a co-angler in.
Right.
I think that a kid is almost better just to come out of college or high school or whatever and take his lumps in the front of the boat and not even try to figure out the co-angling part.
Sure. I mean, and, you're going to get, your good and bad guys, whether it's a win or, I shouldn't say bad guy. You're going to have days and draws where, you maybe don't catch them or
right.
You don't learn a whole lot. But I go out with buddies, friends, things like that. And you can honestly learn something, whether it's something they're doing right or wrong, every single fishing trip.
Right. I go out with my 14-year-old. He teaches me something like every trip.
I learn on my guide trips all the time.
It might be a bad word, but it's something,
Yeah. I mean, I'm on the lake every day, and I'm exactly where the throw, to where those bass are 90% of the time or whatever. And sure enough, somebody's throwing one out the back of the boat into no man's land, and they're catching a lot of fish. So there's been times out there even where I'm guiding somebody and I can see what they're doing, and I'm, hey, the fish are suspended because his shaky head hadn't hit the bottom all day.
Right. You learn something from that.
You always got to, this is one thing I've said all along in all my stuff, always be willing to learn. The day you think you know everything there is to know is the day you just got to hang your odds up, because
that's right.
Honestly, fishing is always evolving, and our techniques are evolving, our gear is evolving, and whether I've never met a more temperamental fish in the world than a largemouth bass. Like, he'll change a mood in a minute, let alone a day or an afternoon. So yeah, always be willing to learn, and you can always be willing to learn from a fellow angler.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say, I have a lot of friends that golf. I personally don't golf. I don't know if you do, Casey. I don't know if you do, Mikey, but they talk about how hard it is. Well, bass fishing is kind of like golfing, except that damn golf ball doesn't move. You try to hit that golf ball when it's moving. Let me tie a string on it and jerk it every time you try to hit it. And then come tell me how hard golfing is compared to bass fishing.
Yeah, it's for someone who doesn't do it. And I think I played golf Saturday, so I do both. But you should just save yourself the frustration. Probably do neither. But
honestly, I've lived by the rule: you can be a golfer or you can be a fisherman. I don't know how you do both of them.
Right.
I
insanity, right?
Yeah, absolutely nuts.
Mikey, we're going on like almost an hour now, and this has been fun, and I could go all night, but I know there's one other important thing that we wanted to talk to Casey about, right?
Absolutely, yeah, Casey. So we got you on board here, and for guys that that are watching, Casey is a Missouri guy. He lives on Lake of the Ozarks, and you are a guide out there as well. So you're available for your guide services. but you also do a lot of your own YouTube, and you got a big social media following out there as well. I've got to know you pretty well, and I know you work with a company, Trophy Bass Company, and you guys make some of the best swim jigs out there. You have the Ozark Flash spinnerbait. That's a legend reborn. I want to give you an opportunity to just go ahead and talk a little bit about Trophy Bass Company and about, I mean, we're looking at, it's late summer, fall everywhere, so I'm sure it's transition time. Some of your favorite techniques that you would do in your late fall transition or late summer, early fall transition, if any of that applies.
Yeah, sure. Trophy Bass Company is a company we've had for several years. All the lures are pretty much designed by myself. You mentioned the Ozark Flash. That's probably our most well-known product. It's a spinnerbait where we use some different components. We use music wire, to make some more vibration. Our blades are a little bit unique with some half and half painted stuff, but that spinnerbait's been around forever, and it's in high demand here in the Ozarks. So that's going to be a big player, especially as we get into fall with the shad and everything moving back into the creeks. We'll be fishing it around boat docks, big punk rock points, and we'll be fishing it actually through the shad a lot in the back of these creeks. But we're a small company. We make quality stuff with really good components, and it's designed for tournament fishermen. It's tournament grade tackle. We use big hooks, and usually have big weights available for guys that like to fish deep. But we're going to be throwing my Trophy Pro jig around. It's kind of a do-it-all jig. Drag it in 30 foot of water on the bottom, or flip it to a lay down in a foot of water. We fish that all the time here at Lake of the Ozarks, and so we'll be flipping it around shallow boat docks, fishing around brush piles. A lot of these fish here on this lake, such a big lake, a lot of fish. There'll be a lot of fish that push shallow here for the next couple months. They can be caught on jigs, spinnerbaits, top waters. And there's also going to be a lot of fish that stay deep around those deep points and brush piles where we traditionally use our pro jig and half ounce to up to 1 ounce size. So it's a really diverse lake, and that I really appreciate you letting me talk about the Trophy Bass stuff.
So if somebody wanted to go check it out, where would they go to?
Yeah, just go to trophybasscompany.com. We've also got an Instagram page, which you can find Trophy Bass Co., or find us on Facebook as well. So we're constantly working to kind of grow the company. We got some new spinnerbait lines coming out with some different blade combinations, some different sizes out just in the next few weeks. So, and check out our wacky weight. I actually used that at our last tournament, the championship. First couple days when those fish were suspended. It's a unique little weight you just slip on your hook with your traditional wacky rig worm, and man, it's super cool. You can fish it at greater depths, catches a lot of fish, and increases action.
The wacky worm.
It is. I've seen it. That is pretty cool. And but all the stuff that I've seen from you guys at Trophy Bass Company is like you said, tournament grade. It's high quality stuff. Here in Florida, I'm a big swim jig fan, and you have one of the best swim jigs out there. You can skip that thing; it goes through grass. It's just a fantastic jig with a big beefy hook, and that's something that a lot of swim jigs.
That's
my opinion.
Really my favorite product in the lineup. I used it, with a chatterbait as well to win our last tournament at last year, our last tournament of the year at Lake Champlain. So and I've caught fish on it. Everybody's been this year. So that's one of my favorite product lineup, and you can really.
I know it is. In fact, it was sitting in, I think it was in Sandusky, Ohio, on Lake Erie, talking to you a little bit, and I looked down and all I see is spinning rods and drop shots. I said, "Where's the jig?" And he's like, "Honestly, I don't think you had a jig in the boat. That's the first time I've ever heard that from you."
I do have one last question for Casey, then I'm going to dip out and let you guys finish up. But, we've had baits over the years that have come onto the scene and been like super hot for a year. The Alabama rig, it was like the most deadly thing for a season, and it kind of went away. And there's several others, but what is the deal with the vibrating jig, chatterbait? It seems to be only getting better as time goes by. I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think guys are gaining confidence in it, throwing it a lot more. But, you know, early in the season, it seems to get big bites. And you know, that tournament I used it in was in the fall.
Right.
And it's actually, you know, it's still something that I'm working to gain confidence in. You know,
Right.
I throw it as much as I can, but I'm still a square bill spinnerbait kind of guy. You know, we don't have as much grass here in Missouri as a lot of people, and it works phenomenal around the boat docks and in the early spring. But it seems to excel around grass. It's efficient.
Right.
Yeah. You can cover water with it, and it gets the big bites. It really does.
I think it's just such a versatile lure, and people are just learning more and more ways to fish it and fish it effectively. I mean, you know, as we progress as anglers, we're just going to learn more techniques with it. Just to me, just like a swim jig. A swim jig is the same. I don't think people realize how versatile of a lure that really is in total. You know, I think that's definitely something, and I think you guys are onto something absolutely with your Trophy Bass Company lures. They're fantastic. Good stuff. Now, you mentioned where you can find all that stuff, but where can people find you, Casey? Because you put out some great information out there on a regular basis. You got a YouTube, you got Instagram. Where can they find and follow Casey Scanlon?
Yeah, Casey Scanlon 10 on Instagram, and then it's Casey Scanlon Professional Angler on Facebook, and then go to my YouTube page, check it out. We put a lot of content on there. That's Casey Scanlon Fishing. So if you Google my name, you should find a lot of those outlets. But we're constantly working on content one way or another, and you know, whether it's putting out a fishing report for Lake of the Ozarks here or putting up our tournament videos, there's usually something on there new to watch.
That's awesome. That's awesome, and we appreciate you being here for sure. Definitely, you know, and being able to help everybody else get them to hang out with you is one of my favorite things out there. You know, this is we lead a pretty good life, don't we, Ricky? You know,
it's no doubt. I mean, there are not many people on the planet that can say we do what we do, but
I would love to be on the tournament end at some point, but I don't want to have to deal with the pressure that you guys do. So I'm pretty good, man. Right now, to be honest.
Dad, like, leave of it, man. I'm ready to just go fishing.
Yeah.
All right, Mikey, we'll shut it down whenever you're ready. Casey, thank you for joining us tonight on the first ever. I mean, this is the first one ever, and I think it was a great success. The quality looked good to me. Hopefully, we'll get some feedback from our fans, and we'll have you back on soon.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me be your guinea pig tonight. And I like the show, man. Look forward to a lot more episodes.
We need a bait called the guinea pig.
Yeah, maybe next time we'll see you live on the water. How's that sound?
Working on it.
All right, Casey. Talk to you, man. Mikey, thank you.
Thanks, Casey. What a good dude, man. What a good dude. That was a lot of fun, Ricky. I'm glad we got to do this today. I hope everyone enjoyed it. And you know what? We only did today live on YouTube. But we have the capabilities. We're going to be doing this on our Facebook. We're going to do it on our YouTube. We will be doing these, you know, regularly scheduled once we figure it all out. But we're going to do it from our studios, our home offices, as well as from the boat ramp.
Again, Casey's a class act. Been a good friend for years. Yeah, all right, brother. Well, let's shut this thing down, man. I certainly appreciate it, and it worked out great.
Thank you so much, Ricky. We're gonna end things just like that, guys. We hope you enjoy this. Thank you for joining us, and look forward for a future broadcast from Bass 365 Live, coming at you right here.